Ladies and gentlemen, warm welcome. My name is Jacek Pochłopień. I am editor in Dziennik Gazeta Prawna, who is partner of Polish Business Hub. And let me briefly introduce our next speaker. Professor Arkadiusz Kowalski is an associate professor, head of the Department of East Asian Economic Studies and Deputy Director of the World Economy Research Institute at the Warsaw School of Economics. His research and academic teaching focus on innovation systems, clusters, international economics, development economics, and international competitiveness. He has been engaged in consultancy work with international and governmental organizations, the parliament, enterprises, and clusters. He also led the team that prepared reports presented at Expo in Osaka and Dubai. And today, Professor Kowalski is with us. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introduction. And here, my privilege is to present the report that was prepared by the group of scientists in our university in SGH, Warsaw School of Economics. And this is on investment competitiveness of Poland, when we focus on such issues like global value chains and Polish participation in global value chains, foreign direct investments into Poland, but also outward foreign direct investments, trade and similar issues. And these results of our research I would like to share with you in brief today, and I encourage you to download the report, which is available free of charge in PDF form using that link or QR code. Well, what we focused on is mostly investment competitiveness, but as we focus on the topic of competitiveness, there are different dimensions of competitiveness that are interrelated. So it's not possible to talk about investment competitiveness without analyzing trade competitiveness, income competitiveness, technological, digital, institutional, and institutions also create some environment in which investors want to participate or not. So all these different aspects we analyzed, we focus on investment competitiveness, but starting and looking on attractiveness of Polish economy, I would like to simply show something that happened in Europe in the last decades, and this is very long perspective. And what we can see here is on horizontal axis we can see basically income. In the beginning of the transition period, 1993, and on the vertical axis we can see the increase, the speed of increasing income, and what we can see is negative correlation, so basically convergence taking place in Europe. Poorer economies in the beginning of that period were increasing their incomes much faster than Western countries, than richer countries. So Central European countries are converging towards Western European. Here is another measure, sigma convergence, measured with standard deviation. We can see that in general, income gaps in Europe are diminishing in the long-term perspective. And especially Poland here was benefiting these changes mostly. We can see here absolute size of the economy. Poland compared with, the most similar countries, in fact, other Visegrad group countries. And what we can see, this red line is for Poland, so Polish economy, which of course is the biggest because of the size of population, but we can see Polish economy was strongly increasing the size of Polish economy. When we count it per people, per capita, we can also see that Poland, which was the poorest out of these four countries in the beginning of this transition period, in fact now is giving first place only to Czech Republic and is second in the Visegrad group countries. And this is in fact what we also analyze in our report, and you may read it more in detail. So Poland has been doing very well in the last decades in terms of income competitiveness and converging towards Western European standards. And this income competitiveness is very much related with our topic, the key topic of that report, so this internationalization of economy. And here investments first, and we can see very strong interrelation between inward FDI stock and gross domestic product in Poland. So very strong correlation, which means that well, FDIs have been contributing to higher incomes, and opposite, development of economy was encouraging investors to invest in Poland. And here, well, so how has investments in and out of Poland looked like in the last decades? And here, one of the graph which you may find in our report, and what we can see, this blue line inward FDI stock, which has been increasing in the last decades, and it is much higher. It is much above outward FDI, but this is also very interesting. This orange line, which still is very small, but these are outward investments from Poland, and we know that Poland traditionally is recipient of capital, but it has been changing, and still we are at a very low level. But we can see that Poland is also, in many cases, Polish companies internationalize, expand to foreign markets with doing investments, which in fact is proving so-called Williamson or Dunning's investment path hypothesis, meaning that countries which start growing fast first receive capital, and after reaching some point they are sending the capital abroad, which China is a very good example, and proves that this is right, because China now outward investments from China are higher than inward investments to China. And in Poland we are still in the beginning of that way, so we need to know where exactly we are. What kind of investments we have? So basically what sectors? Total services. This accounts for most of foreign direct investments in Poland, followed by manufacturing, and then construction. These are the first three sectors. We have special chapter in our report on American investments in Poland, as we found this is very interesting case. Although American investments are not the biggest in Poland, I mean there are other countries like Netherlands, for example, where investments from the Netherlands or Germany are bigger, but here we want to dedicate and analyze and explore this topic of American investments. And we can see here we've got around 1,050 investors from United States in Poland. And here are some examples which are also analyzed in our report. So here top 10 American investors. So groups and they are the names of examples of their subsidiaries. It's not finite list, of course. There are only some examples, and some companies we know very well and we are familiar with. And now what about global value chains? Yeah, so this is a little bit more like tricky or advanced than investments only. So how Poland participates in global value chains, and here we may think about two types of participation in global value chains. So first is this backward global value chain, when Polish companies use in the production process intermediaries which are imported from other countries. Yeah? Whereas forward global value chains would be the situation where Poland exports some goods, some intermediaries, some resources, which then are used by producers in other countries. And here we can see that, in fact, Poland is increasing its participation in global value chain. So altogether, the total global value chain participation index accounts for 56%, which means that most of Polish international trade is related to participation in global value chains. And it has been increasing, as we can see, from 1995, it was only 30%. Now it almost doubled. With the majority of this backward global value chain, but for Central Europe it's normal. Still, we as economy, Polish economy has a relatively high share of this forward global value chains. And here again, we may compare with other Visegrad Group countries. So here is the share of forward in to backward global value chain participation rate, and we can see that this green light, the highest share is in Poland, which may be explained by the size of the economy, but also other things. And in general, this is good sign, yeah, because this means we are not only assembly. Our FDIs in Poland, we have, they are not only like assembly-driven FDIs or something like that. That relatively we also export many goods, which then are used in the production of other countries. And the share of main Polish partners, first in these backward global value chains. So from which countries we mostly import intermediaries, goods that are used in our production process, and not surprisingly, Germany would be here in the first place, more than 5%, followed by China. In general, from European Union, it counts for 50%, and from non-EU countries, more than 18%, but it's quite similar. Whereas when we look on these forward global value chains, so where we export our intermediaries that then are used in the production process of other countries, and here again, Germany. Yeah, Germany is our key partner in that. With that respect, 4.4 percentage share, followed by Czechia, France, Netherlands. From non-EU countries, that would be United Kingdom, Switzerland, so where we are here, and China. And here, well, going to conclusions and recommendations, and of course these are only briefs from our whole report, so I encourage you to download the report and read that. But here what I would like to mention mostly is, first of all, we achieved the point in time when we should not focus on the quantity of FDI, so how much FDIs or what is their value, but we should more pay attention on the quality of FDIs. So focus more on FDIs and attract FDIs in R&D, intensive sectors, high-tech sectors, green, digital, and these sectors which are more linked to domestic suppliers or knowledge-based institutions. So quality, not quantity. Institutional rivalry is also important, and here we also analyzed that, explored that in our report, this institutional system, and we found many bottlenecks, yeah, and there is a need and a place to improve the rule of law, regulatory quality, policy stability, efficiency of administration. So these are all factors we analyze and which, in fact, may be improved in order to attract more, especially these high quality investments. Also, what is important is to build connections between investors, especially when we think about these high-tech sectors, these knowledge-intensive sectors. Big connections, links between investors and local environment, local companies, local universities, because this leads to mutual exchange of knowledge, technology transfer, learning, and this kind of effects. So this also is important to avoid dichotomy between sophisticated, modern sector of foreign companies and relatively traditional sector of domestic company, which in fact we can find such pattern in many countries. We were doing analysis also, even for such countries like Ireland and Sweden, and this is the problem everywhere. In fact, even in these very technologically advanced modern economies like Sweden, Ireland, usually there is this dichotomy. Usually foreign-owned companies sector is more modern, more innovative, and there is always the challenge to build the connections between domestic sector and foreign-owned sector. Also, what is important that we could see that in the last years, these criteria like security, resilience, this is also important to build resilient value chains. We could see that when during the crisis, for example, COVID crisis, we witnessed lots of disruptions in global value chains, with delays in deliveries of many important components, this chip crisis or drug security issues. In fact, when we analyze pharmaceutical sector in Poland, we find that most of ingredients used in production of Polish pharmaceutical sectors, they come from Asia. And now, in many situations, there is this problem of ensuring drug security. So resilient global value chains, and this is also a very important challenge, which is also connected with what we did in the last section of the report. So this is more like future-oriented sector, when we look how to attract, how to build the good strategy, how to use foresight to not only to react, exposed to some changes that are occurring on the market, but to anticipate them, to maybe even create them, shape them, and prepare them well in advance. So this is also one of the let's say conclusion and recommendation from our work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And Professor, please take a seat. We have some time for some questions. Please. Yeah. Yeah, please. Okay.
Panie profesorze, tutaj pan pokazał jeden wykres, który bardzo mnie zaciekawił, ponieważ z 90 roku wychodziliśmy jako gospodarki wszystkie z jednego tak zwanego boksu, czyli słowo start było równe, czyli Czechy, Słowacja i inne kraje bloku wschodniego. I Czechy dlaczego nas wyprzedziły? Ja powiem dlaczego. Ponieważ w Polsce zbyt skomplikowana jest legislacja i zbyt często się zmienia dla tych najmniejszych przedsiębiorców i różnica 5-10% w utrzymaniu firmy, tych najmniejszych takich firm jednoosobowych powoduje to, że Czechy nas wyprzedzają, bo są bardziej konkurencyjni w cenie. Prowadziłem firmę w Niemczech, więc też nawet Niemcy są dużo tańsze w utrzymaniu firmy takiej małej niż Polska. To też mnie bardzo dziwiło. A kolejny wykres to udowadniał to, że Polska jednak się w kryzysach bardziej trzyma, no bo jesteśmy z tym krajem jednak największą gospodarką, która też bazuje na dużych firmach, no i przez nas przepływa też geopolitykę, czy może to tak bym chciał wyjaśnić, czy po prostu mamy wpływ na zmiany i uproszczenie dla tych najmniejszych.
Okay, and okay.
Żeby nie było ułatwienia przez 2 lata, jak mamy na przykład niepłacenie ZUS-u, ale potem zderzamy się z barierą 2000 zł, z 500 euro.
Okay, the question concerns Polish competitiveness and comparing with Czechy, for instance. But Professor, please.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is also consistent with our findings, what you said, and this institutional component here. So institutions, and here I pointed out some weaknesses, and what you said is very relevant here. So this is also coherent with our observation. So there's very great room for improvements, and this is what you finish your, well, well, is it possible to change it? Well, we need to try, but we know how difficult this is to make these institutional changes, especially, well, legal changes and so on and so on. But I totally agree here with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you very much for the session. Related to the value chain you were discussing, it was related only with the products you export and import, or either with outsourcing and reshoring, because a lot of other European countries have this kind of issues. So Poland has this discussion?
Yes, we also have this discussion. However, at our stage, in our reality, and what we focused mostly was this, through trade. Yeah, so and this is our methodology, at least in that report, to measure that. So so this offshoring we didn't did, but you know, for Poland that wouldn't be as high numbers. You could see Polish outward FDIs, and you know, we are just starting, so that would be very similar here situation.
Thank you. And more questions, please. So maybe let me add one question. You mentioned investments. You mentioned U.S. investments. Well, U.S. is a hot topic nowadays in Davos. But let me ask you, what are the key drivers for boosting Poland's competitiveness through investment, and especially US investment, which the report highlights?
Yeah, so first of all, we need to attract still these investments. We have a lot of them. So these institutional changes and different kind of incentives. But when we have these investments, and this is also what we measure and what we describe in our research, is then how to increase competitiveness through investments. Yeah, this was so how investments may contribute to competitiveness. And now these traditional, well, let's say, channels, how investments contribute to competitiveness, like creating job places and so on, this is not as relevant as I here would highlight technology transfer. China is well, I wrote many papers on China and this technology transfer to China through investments. And Poland, we also are doing some reports, and there are different kind of spillover effects, how this knowledge that is coming, and very often in very high-tech sector companies, then may spill over on local economy. Well, different kind of demonstration imitation effects, increased competition effects, training effect. You know, in our university, most of the students has experience in working for, you know, for these international, let's say, international consultancy groups. And well, I can see this technology transfer even at this level. So, for example, how they present some topics, yeah, how they analyze, and so on and so on. So, technology transfer here, I would point out that effect, and that we mostly should focus on that, especially that, as I mentioned, quality, not quantity, now matters, and this is also connected with that.
Yeah, quality, not quantity, seems to be very important. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. So maybe one more question concerning Poland. You mentioned that, and this is in your report. The report argues that clusters can convert generic location assets into specialized territories. Which Polish regions are best positioned for this, and what governance model makes clusters work in practice? Clusters, it's really very interesting topic.
Yes, so here, what kind of clusters? Well, the best example here is aviation wall in Poland, the aviation wall in Podkarpackie region, which is in fact FDI-driven cluster. There are lots of aviation investments from United States, from Italy. So this is one case. And I remember on the previous panel, one of the member mentioned Silicon Valley, and that everybody would like to become Silicon Valley. There were such words, and I totally agree with that, and in fact it happens in the world, because cluster policy, this is becoming very important policy all over the world. I was also analyzing that in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, and we in Poland, we have these key national clusters, and we have some instruments how to attract foreign direct investments through clusters. Why? Because investors, what they are looking usually, they are looking for good environment, for specialized regions, specialized in this profile of production, in this sector in which they run activity. And very often, you know, these investments are FDI driven. And well, I mentioned also about China. Look, Chinese miracle is also very much based on foreign direct investments. But when we look on the geography on investments, foreign investments in China, we can also see they are very clustered, yeah, in the East Coast, but in specific provinces in which there are some competences in specific sectors, either ICT or pharmaceutical or financial services, or and so on and so on. You know, this foreign direct investments usually is very cluster specific issue. And in Silicon Valley, we may also find, well, on December I was there and I was studying that topic. We have lots of Asian companies, European companies, which are going there for what? To become part of this knowledge environment, to participate, because still, you know, geography is not dead. Despite we have globalization and internet, still diffusion of knowledge is decreasing function of geographical distance. And this is why this cluster effect is very important. And many studies prove that, you know, this diffusion of information knowledge is decreasing function of geographical distance. So this is very often, this local embeddedness is very important.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, please.
No, I'd just like to carry on from the lady behind me here, and for your consideration in future work. clearly, as you say, this is trade-based. But in Poland and throughout the region, the rise of IT work is enormous. Yesterday, I spoke with a Polish gentleman who had a company in Poland with 2,000 employees doing IT work, so quite significant. And there's been discussion on startups, which is an old topic, frankly, and a necessary one. And that's where the innovation is coming from, not necessarily in trade, in materials, not so much, there is some. So for your future work, I would suggest that could be an area for you to consider and for the school to consider. And the next problem might be, or one of the problems might be, which there's always solutions, of course, is the discussion on startup culture, which is rife throughout all of the region and in Poland. I hear that, and we're involved in these areas as well, professionally. The coming problem everywhere is how does a successful startup, of which is a significant minority of startups, how do they get funding, how do they get knowledge to go on from there? In other words, an A-B stage if you're talking about investment rounds. There is a dearth, a lack of capital and interest in it. And again, that could be an area where you could perhaps contribute a lot in these various areas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great comment,
you.
and yeah, thank you for that recommendation. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you. Our time has come, but maybe just a very short question. Are you optimistic about the future of foreign investments in Poland and its impact on Polish economy?
Yes, looking on the trends, I'm very optimistic on that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your remarks and questions. Thank you.